My father came from a very large family. He had a sister named Mary, so she was my Aunt Mary. Her and her husband, Joe, we call him, or they called him, Tracky Ballstrin, had two children, a daughter named Domien, we'll call her Eileen, and an adopted son named Lonnie. Lonnie was Dolores's, his other sister's, child, but Mary adopted him when he was 4 or 5 years old. I have a video about him called The Lost Cousin. Well, back to Eileen, Mary's daughter. Eileen was born in 1924 in Williamson, Illinois. Her dad, Tracky, was straight from Italy and was a coal miner, and so that's probably why they called her Domien. I don't really know how to pronounce that, but we'll call her Eileen. Now that brings us to the man who pulled my pigtails, Fred Ziegler. He was born in 1920. He came from a large family. They were Catholic and attended Sacred Heart Church in Livingston. His father, John, was from Slovakia, and his mother was born in Pennsylvania, although her parents were born in Czechoslovakia. So Fred's parents came from about the same area that Grandma and Grandpa Uher came from. So in 1940, Fred was 19 and he lived with his mom and dad and 5 brothers and 1 sister, 8 children in 1920 census, 1 girl. In 1936, Fred graduated grade school in a class with only 10 children. That's all the education I could find for Fred. In 1942, Fred was in the Army and he was stationed at Fort Bliss. It is a 1,700 square mile base in Texas and New Mexico. Eileen was staying in a guest house there. She was only 18 and they got married. She was 18, Fred was 21. In the Army, he became a staff sergeant. In 1950, Fred was working as a trip rider in the local coal mine. I looked up what a trip rider was, and it was a person who rode on a train of cars that transported miners' supplies or coal down into the mine. So I looked it up and I watched a video, and it's just really eerie the way it's low. The coal mines are real low and the cars are going down on a rail like a train, and he, I guess, would drive that. Let's see, in 1950, the census, he was 29 and Eileen was 26, and by then they had 2 children. In 1960, his mother made the newspapers because she fell from a car, and she suffered from shock, minor abrasions, and bruising. My mother also fell out of a car, but she had, I believe, my brother Mark in her lap. It could have been Michael, but I think it was Mark. So in 1960, it was a time before seat belts, so if your door wasn't closed all the way and somebody made a curve or turned a corner, you could fall out of the door. I don't know how long Fred worked in the mine, but by 1962 he was a patrolman. He worked for the Staunton Police Department. Fred made the newspaper a lot, arresting all kinds of thieves and drunks and many traffic violations. So let me see. In 1963, in one of the articles, it said, one arrest that would be great for these days was when Patrolman Fred arrested 2 high school boys for stealing pies, cakes, and a carton of cigarettes from a grocery store. The boys were paroled to their parents and had to report to the police station each day after school. I wish the crimes were that simple nowadays, but they're not. In 1963, Fred arrested several boys for igniting the postings of notices that said you cannot shoot off fireworks in Staunton. The boys were charged $10 in costs. And in 1963, he also arrested a Navy man on leave. Fred found him parked in the middle of the street and sound asleep. He got a $10 fine also. In 1964, he arrested a man at 11:42 at night and was charged with illegal transportation of alcohol. The man paid a $100 fine. The suspect denied the charges when later questioned by Fred, so Fred searched his car. The suspect had thrown 2 beer cans out of his car on Elm Street, but unfortunately for him, his 2 passengers witnessed the whole thing. So the suspect had to answer to the charges in Carlinville, Illinois, the county seat of Macoupin County. In the same article, Fred arrested a man for speeding. The man was picked up again for not having a valid license. He failed to post a bond. So he was arrested on a second charge and additionally fined $100. And he also had to go and appear in Carlinville. These seem so trivial by today's standards, but in 1964, all these were serious offenses. Fred was probably a nice guy, I would say. I was probably just a backward kid. I remember him peeking around the side of a chair with this Cheshire Cat grin and scaring me. And whenever he could, I guess, he pulled my braids or my pigtails. So I got to where I told my parents I would never go over to Eileen's house again. And they had to drop me off at Grandma Euher's house, which was pretty close to my cousin Eileen's house. So I couldn't stand to be around the guy. But I was so young, and he was probably a nice guy. Fred died in October of 1972. And Eileen died June 1982, 10 years later. He was only 52 years old and she was only 58 years old, so they both died pretty young. Their stone is in Staunton Memorial Cemetery. It was funny that Eileen, my cousin, died in 1982, and I had no idea anything about her. I never even thought about her. And I got married in 1980, and wouldn't you think you would invite your cousin? But I had all kinds of cousins that I had no idea who they were, where they lived, anything about them. And she was one of those. I have very vivid memories of Fred. It's just odd how we don't know at the time how we affect other people. And I can't believe after all these years, about, 65 years or something, I still have a very vivid memory of him. I guess it was traumatic for me. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. Till next time, bye.